Welcome to Trent University's Academic Skills Expert Panel Discussions. Part of what makes Trent ESL's program unique and effective is its approach to skills instruction in our English for University Levels 4 and 5 classes. Not only does our program include innovative workshop-based classes like the grammar workshop or university transition courses, but we've created two separate streams to ramp up productive skills and receptive skills instruction in preparation for full-time undergraduate studies. On the productive skills side, we've got our academic communication class, and on the receptive skills side, academic analysis. Trent ESL's TBELL program will benefit from this panel discussion, which offers sort of an insider's look of how we teach receptive skills and productive skills. These sessions are being recorded and embedded into lessons which will draw out key concepts in academic skills instruction, as well as vocabulary and other language targets relevant. Thank you very much, my esteemed colleagues and friends, for joining me today. Let me introduce the panel to you. On my far left, I'm joined by Laurie Steers. Laurie holds a bachelor's degree in translation from York University and is fluent in French as well as English, obviously. She holds her master's degree in education from OISE at the University of Toronto and has been an ESL teacher at Trent University for 7 years. She's taught all of our levels, all the skills classes. Prior to teaching, she's worked in educational publishing for 14 years. Thank you very much, Laurie.
Thank you for having me, Breton.
Yeah. On Laurie's right, I'm joined by Andrew Keane. Andrew has 17 years teaching ESL across Japan, Korea, and Canada. He holds a master's in applied linguistics from the University of New England in Australia, and he's been at Trent for 1 year after teaching in Aichi University in Japan for 6 years, and he can speak Japanese as well. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Just next to Andrew, I'm joined by Tamara Alcasi. Tamara holds a PhD in Hispanic linguistics from UMass at Amherst and has 14 years experience teaching language skills classes in Spanish, 4.5 years teaching ESL at Trent University. Prior to that, she held the Director of Languages position at the University of Toronto in Scarborough. Nice to see you today, Tamara.
Thanks, Breton. This is a great opportunity.
Cool. Thanks for coming. And directly to my left, I'm joined by Glenda Fish. Glenda holds a Master's of Divinity from Tyndale Seminary and a Master's of Education from Ottawa University, and has 20-plus years teaching ESL, with 11 of those teaching at Trent ESL. And she is the current curriculum coordinator and EAP specialist for Trent ESL. Thanks for being here today, Glenda.
You're welcome, and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, my pleasure. And my name is Breton Clark. I'm academic liaison and a Trent ESL instructor, and have been for the past 3 years, and look forward to continuing to hold my position here. Without further ado, let's get started with our productive skills discussion panel. So I've organized discussion questions by theme, included some examples in advance, and so let's get started talking about specifically first. Productive skills and how they lead into academic preparation. Tamara, would you mind briefly discussing what some of the most important steps are in the transition from general English to EAP for writing and for speaking?
Sure. Well, a big change that students have to deal with when they move from ESL to EAP is basically the genre that they're going to be dealing with. So they've gone from dealing with personal topics, writing about themselves and their environment. All of a sudden, they're going to begin writing and speaking about academic topics.
And differences in genre also probably implies different types of approaches to research and sources and inputs as well, likely.
Of course, right. I think my colleagues might want to join me on giving their own experience on this topic.
This can be a more casual discussion, so feel free to interject. But
so they're also bringing in academic topics that are they're encountering within their coursework. So we're in a way imitating the academic environment that they will be in when they finish their ESL. So they will begin using the input of research, text material, lectures to put into their writing and into their presentations.
I'd like to add, I think that when you're bringing other sources into your material, you have to be very aware of documentation and academic integrity and avoiding plagiarism. So that's an important part of our program also at levels 4 and 5.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As well as like the research and knowing how to use a library or online, getting sources, as well as knowing which type of source is academic and which is more general
Totally.
purpose. So,
And some best practices as far as using the internet as a research tool.
sure.
Yeah, outrageous. Glenda, would you briefly discuss, as curriculum coordinator, you've seen it all lately, I think, and we've just recently gone through a restructuring of our curriculum. Would you mind briefly discussing some of the rationales behind Trent ESL's top genres for writing?
I think what we do that's perhaps a little different than what other programs do is that we do have writing assignments aside from the traditional essay. And we've done that because we genuinely want students to be ready for what they will meet at university. And so, for example, students are often asked to complete annotated bibliographies, so we include those. Students often go into disciplines that require report writing, and so we do science report writing and we do business report writing. And so we want to make sure that students are equipped for different types of writing and assignments other than just the traditional essay.
Right. If I could add, it depends a lot what area students will be going into. So when I've had large numbers of students who were going into the sciences, I made sure that they were familiar with some more technical writing. And also I found it useful to make sure they've had some experience with exam question writing, because that's quite a different kind of essay than writing our standard 5-paragraph essay.
No question. And short answer, too, is a big part of undergraduate test creation. Anybody can comment on how you choose to, or what speaking assignments or speaking culminating events you use in your classes as well, and why as well.
Well, there's going to be presentations that they will have to be doing in their regular courses once they leave this program. So getting their presentation skills for being able to summarize their message and being able to give it in a interesting way, but as well for seminars and being able to interact in a discussion and be able to express their opinions. So, some ways.
I think another important genre that they need to be familiar with is the poster presentation. And I've approached that with group work. So I find that some international students don't have a lot of experience of doing a group presentation. And so there's an assignment that I give, depending on which topics are being treated that semester, to work together as a group and to create a poster and give a poster presentation.
One thing I find that when I'm doing presentations with advanced level students is that I try to almost wean them off PowerPoint, or to use PowerPoint to back up what they're saying and not actually speak for them. So by our highest level, for example, I say the goal is to speak and be understood, and not just rely on what the screen behind you is saying.
Recently, I gave a presentation assignment where I allowed them to use PowerPoint, but I said you can only use titles on your PowerPoint. You cannot put your entire text. So it forced them to speak to the PowerPoint and not read off the PowerPoint.
And that's very interesting training, because I don't think that it's only ESL students that have a tendency to overdo text on PowerPoint slides. Totally. So they're going to be that's a good training for them.
Yeah.
We're fortunate that we have a good inflow of information coming from the academic departments. In the sense that it enables us to sort of to learn from what's going on and to prepare them. That's the sense that I'm getting as far as our EAP program ramps up preparation for writing and for speaking. Let's move on to how we use a process-oriented approach. Lori, if you wouldn't mind commenting on how and why Trent ESL and maybe your classes in particular emphasize the importance of process in the productive skills.
Well, I can speak a little bit to the writing assignments. Whenever you write an assignment, there are many steps involved, and I think the students need to learn that right off the bat. So we build in many steps. For instance, there's the brainstorming stage, the outline, the first draft, and before they do the final draft, often they will edit their own work or they will have their peers edit their work. So the idea is to have a more polished product by demonstrating the different steps involved. Andrew, anything to add?
Yeah, I would say that even that can be for the writing process, but as well for if they're making a presentation or any of their speaking components, there's going to be steps involved in that as well. And so preparing researching the topic that they're going to be presenting on or discussed in a seminar, as well as then finding good sources for it, and again, maybe writing and editing before it's the presentation. So
I think another step that we have built in is our writing conferences. And these are one-on-one weekly appointments with an instructor. And we call them writing conferences because students typically bring whatever writing assignment they're working on. But they work through that assignment with an instructor one-on-one. And one of the reasons that we've introduced this is because at the university, we have an academic skills center, and we hope that when our students go through this process of writing conferences with our instructors, that then they will build into their writing process and assignment process the idea of going to see an academic skills instructor about their work when they're in regular studies. So we're trying to build that habit into their academic life.
There's a further advantage to the process writing. We know that a lot of students, and this includes Canadian students, they can become overwhelmed with the process of a big project and maybe not allocate their time very well, or they may not know how to approach the project in general. So by breaking it down into pieces, it makes it a little bit more manageable for a student, and it also helps prevent that other problem that we discussed a little bit earlier, the issue of plagiarism. So when students can work on something in steps, they're less likely to get to the end and panic and try to find a way to quickly produce a paper that can pass the course, and they have to rely on something like plagiarism.
It's getting way too easy to find that kind of thing out now.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. It's nice to see you again. Let's keep talking about the grammar workshop now. Okay. So this is another sort of unique element of our EAP preparation. And Lori, would you mind just briefly outlining what makes a workshop class different from other EAP classes?
Sure. Well, first I'll talk about the grammar workshop kind of in general. So grammar workshop happens in level 4. And it's the last kind of traditional structured grammar course that these students will take. Because in level 5, we don't have a grammar course. So it's really unique because we notice that students make mistakes in their grammar writing despite repeated lessons in grammar. So we thought by level 4, maybe we should take a different approach and put a little more onus on the student to find and correct their own errors. So we do some traditional grammar instruction, but more importantly, we do what we call a workshop, which happens in almost every class, but then we have a dedicated class towards workshopping. So that's when we look at grammar errors under different categories, such as parallel structure, agreement, verb tenses, and we analyzed errors made, so we might put a series of sentences up on the board, and as a group,
straight from the students,
from their work,
from what they're working on.
So as a teacher, I will pull out sample sentences under different categories that we've learned in class, and we kind of attack them together. Okay, what's wrong with this sentence? How do we fix it? So we do that almost in every class, and then we have what we call workshop classes, where
that already seems pretty workshopy to me.
It is pretty workshopy.
Yeah.
What we go go further than that. So when they write papers for their AC class, one of the steps is to before they hand it into their AC teacher, they will hand it into their grammar workshop teacher, and their workshop teacher will identify the errors they have made, but not correct them, just identify them, and then hand it back to the students. So on the day that they receive these papers back, we take the whole class and give them the opportunity to fix their errors. And they can talk amongst themselves, they can talk to the teacher, they can consult their dictionaries, the internet, whatever they need to do to fix their errors. So the goal is, by the end of the class, they should have a paper that's virtually grammar error free. And they really appreciate this on many levels, because then they can take this paper and hand it into their AC teacher, knowing that many of their grammar errors have been fixed. So they feel good about that.
One of the things that's really interesting about that approach is it changes the role of the different parties involved.
Nice. That's
So
exactly
the
what I was
students have to take on a bit more of independence. They take on the onus of the editing of their work, of bringing their work to the class, of
And
being
of their
ready.
peers' work as well.
As well, that's right.
Yeah.
And it teaches them a bit about becoming their own teachers, because this is the end of their grammar instruction. And when they continue, they're going to have to be responsible for learning how to see their own errors and finding a place to correct them. When they finish their ESL courses and move on to academic courses, no one's going to be telling them what page in their grammar book they should look to find how to correct their errors. They've got to become independent. They've got to become independent learners. And as well, it changes the role a bit of the instructors. So we have more of a team approach to instruction. So we're constantly in communication with what our students are doing, the faculty between the AC, the academic communications course, and the workshop teacher,
Right.
and then also between the academic analysis and the academic communications instructors.
Yeah, I'd like to add something. So the due dates are critical, right? It's a very tight timeline, actually. So
Yeah.
the grammar teacher has to turn those papers around very quickly to get them back to the student, so that the student can then correct their errors and return them to their AC teacher. So it's a tight process.
So the teacher's role in the overall program, it emphasizes teamwork between teachers. What about in class? Maybe, Andrew, you could comment on how you feel the teacher's role transforms in a workshop environment specifically.
Sorry, between the teachers and between teachers within the class, or
Well, we heard Tamara mention that, and Lori echo, that when teachers are forced to or encouraged to work in such close concert, then there's definitely a teamwork approach. But I think that in a workshop setting, the teacher's role is slightly like, how do you imagine yourself in this
within
role?
a workshop, within a class, then you're going to be more of a facilitator, really, and that the onus is going to be more on the students working together in groups or in pairs and checking each other's work, and the teacher to go around to make sure that if there are problems, they're there to be called upon, but not to be leading the way, that they can.
What about when students want more leadership from us? I've found in my experiences that they sometimes they prefer to have somebody take the lead and show them the way. And
They don't always get what they want. But I know of something that Lori uses. You have student-directed classes, don't you, where the students actually present grammar points?
That's right. Yeah. So part of grammar workshop is also students choose a grammar point that has been kind of nagging at them maybe their whole career in English, and they really want to get down to the bottom of it. So we list a series of such categories that we know are kind of problematic for these students. So either in pairs or small groups, each group will pick a topic and will present it to their peers. So often it's nice for the students to hear it from somebody other than their teacher.
Very cool. But they still get a little bit of leadership.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they say the best way to learn something is to teach it, right? So often that topic that has been nagging away at them now, after having presented it, they know that. Just
Learn, teach, learn.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Let's transition a little bit into now in the end of our discussion about productive skills to the relation between writing and speaking instruction and receptive skills instruction. So how do our academic communication and academic analysis classes dovetail, Glenda?
I think that it depends on who you are. We've sort of been talking about roles here. And if you're the student, then I think that from a student's perspective, academic analysis would lead the way. Because in academic analysis, it's the receptive skills. So they're taking in information by reading or by listening to lectures. And then after they've taken in the content knowledge, then they write about it or speak about it in academic communication. But I have a feeling that if you're the instructor who writes the materials, or maybe I can say from experience, if you're the instructor who writes the materials, I often think about it the other way. I often think about, okay, what assignments do we want them to work on in academic communication? And so then what skills do we need to introduce in academic analysis that will enable the students to complete those assignments in academic communication? So in other words, what research skills or what critical reading skills do they need to develop in academic analysis so that they can write whatever paper we're working on in academic communication? So I think it's sort of your perspective.
Glenda, when I've been using some of your wonderful materials, I see it as the just-in-time supply chain. So very often we're introducing a skill. The students might be doing it in a receptive way. They may be analyzing, learning to, for example, analyze what they're reading, a web page. And then they turn right around and then they use it in the academic communications course. So it's really they're picking up a skill, they're practicing the receptive side of it, and then they turn right around and they use it in their production.
And also, as Laurie had said, the timing is really important for then when the skill, let's say, of a new unit is being introduced, that the AA instructor needs to speak with the AC instructor to know, well, which unit are we starting now, and then when do you need these readings or listening to be completed by, so that we have that background information to carry forward and use for the productive skills.
Because they're completing a critical review assignment on this day, and so in advance of that, they need to have their summarizing and paraphrasing skills in a row.
That's right.
And that's sort of a receptive skill, ultimately, as far as we're concerned.
Yeah.
So
that's the interaction between the teachers, again, is quite important.
No question.
Yeah. We're definitely a team.
Yeah, and just going back a little bit to the grammar workshop discussion and how we kind of dovetail. So in grammar workshop, they have to know relative speech before they can write their research paper when they are reporting on what other researchers said.
Right.
So everything, again, has to happen in a very timely fashion.
And we didn't mention the University Transitions course at the level 5,
Right.
but this also brings in academic skills that they can apply as well. So they can practice how to do a seminar, and then they're actually doing a seminar with content in the AC course for their mark.
Very good. Well, thank you very much again for joining me today. This has been a really fruitful discussion on how Trent ESL sets up students for success in our productive skills instruction.
Thanks for inviting us, Brendan.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much.
Good.